Welcome to the Firebelly Social Show. We're focused on talking to food and beverage brands that are on a mission to make the world better.
Hey, everyone. Duncan here with another episode of the Firebelly Social Show, where we chat with founders and leaders of mission-driven food and beverage brands. And thank you for tuning into this latest episode of the show. We got a great show lined up for you today. I'm so happy. It's with Eric Martindale, founder and CEO of Elite Commerce Group. And let me tell you, he is someone I've followed for a while and then just reached out and we've become fast friends. But he is very key to a world that founders sometimes don't think about, or they don't think about enough. So I'm super excited to have him here today. This episode is brought to you by Firebelly. At Firebelly, we help mission-based food and beverage brands bring people closer together through social media marketing. So if you're ready to use social media to create more community and excitement around food and beverage, go to firebellymarketing.com to learn more. Anyway, I'm so excited to welcome Eric. Now, look, Eric Martindale is his full name, from Elite Commerce Group. He is a high achieving guy. First of all, let's talk about Elite Commerce Group. It's a full service agency specializing in Amazon and retail media, and we're going to get into it. Under his leadership, the team has driven over $500 million in retail sales for clients, with a strong focus on testing and innovation. The company has remained at the forefront of the ever-evolving digital marketing space. So that's a long intro, Eric. Welcome to the show. I'm so happy you're here.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
My man, you have had quite the journey. As I was, researching for the show, your background is fascinating. You've been an officer in the Marines. You've been an adventure athlete, and now you're leading an e-commerce powerhouse. I was going to ask, what's the common thread?
I would say futurism. I was not expecting that question. I don't know if anybody has ever asked me that in that way, but I have been a bit of a technocrat from the beginning. When I was in the Marine Corps, that was kind of my MO, to the point of getting me into trouble at times. And as I approached the end of that career, I did that for almost 20 years. And as I approached the end of that, I didn't know what I was going to do. And then when I stumbled into e-commerce, and I mean stumbled, it was a frontier. So it resonated with me right away, and I knew.
That's amazing. And in the pre-show, we were talking about futurism, and I'm assuming that when you say futurism, it's your vision, and you're constantly like thinking about what the future is going to be like. You're watching the signs, and I'm sure you're extrapolating as well. Is that a good way to define it? What's your take on that?
I think that is a good way to define it. And if I would piggyback on that, because I think that's the right foundation for it, it's to really be able to recognize frontiers to the point where you can exploit them before anyone else. To me, that's futurism, or we'll call it the point of futurism.
Well, I feel you on that one. Back in the day, and back in the day being 2007, I was tired of brand work and people wondering what the ROI on brand work is, and that's why we got into social media, because we wanted to be the first in there. We were among the first. But now let me say, you've talked about, man, I didn't expect to get into this so quickly, but I love it. I love your LinkedIn post, and you talk about why checkout, self-checkout has failed, where it's going in the future, robots and drones, and the ability to pay without going through a counter. Like, how do you keep a track of all this? And the follow-up question is, what are you seeing in the future?
Well, to answer your first question, it is I study it every day. I have, I read the news, but I have certain periodicals that I read every single day. I'm sure we'll get into the point of why I think it's so important for brands, but I read everything that comes out. I've learned to trust certain periodicals, and you hear about something and then you follow that rabbit trail. So it's very deliberate. And where do I think the future is going? I think if I understand that is the second part of that question.
Correct.
It is in a high degree of automation, a shocking degree of automation, um, and depersonalization, not from the consumer perspective, but from the inside of retail operations and fulfillment operations. I think we're going to see a lot less human involvement, and we already are.
So, the stories about the drone farms in Ireland where Amazon is testing, the future of retail, which those stories have been around for like what, 5, 7, 8 years, right?
Mhm.
So we can expect a future where, drones are moving things around inside the warehouse. Drones are delivering things as robots, maybe bigger versions of the Tesla robots, like walking around, moving stuff. So really like kind of like a Blade Runner, like a precursor to Blade Runner is where we are.
We are, and we are there in pockets. If you go back to Amazon has an internal motto, comes from Jeff Bezos directly, test and learn. So they have a culture of R&D, and I think we're seeing that in a lot of the organizations that are driving retail tech. Walmart is another one. There are others, Ocado, Kroger. They're, believe it or not, are a driver in retail tech. They're developing things, putting them into play, using them in small pockets and learning from them. So, every time we met on LinkedIn, and every time I put up a post, somebody comes in and argues this isn't going to work, or it's not going to come as fast as you think. And generally, I can prove that's not true because these things are happening. And if you look at drone farms, they there are companies right now that are using employing autonomous delivery effectively. Chick-fil-A is doing it, but they're doing it in small pockets. And so we tend to look at the future of retail and really the future of technology in terms of what we can see. And we think, well, Chick-fil-A is not doing that. Pizza Hut's not doing that. Amazon's not doing that in my neighborhood, and therefore it's really far away until you talk to somebody who actually gets their Chick-fil-A delivery from a tiny autonomous vehicle that drives up the sidewalk and then comes to their front door. So these things are happening, and they will roll out. And when they do roll out, it'll happen very quickly.
I love the way you thread that because you're saying essentially that it's happening now. We can expect to see it more. I mean, it's you could say it's in beta, but it's really more than beta. But so we it's an evolution, and perhaps it won't be everywhere. Perhaps it will be in certain places where it makes sense.
Mhm.
But tech is very much alive in retail, and you've had innovation be like a core part of your business and testing specifically.
Yes.
There's no question. It was just a statement.
Oh
So
yeah.
you
Yeah, absolutely.
would love to hear what more about the innovation and testing.
Well, I always say if something comes out and a client asks us about it, we will do it. So if a marketplace comes out, a retail media platform, I think the majority of agencies like mine will say, no, we don't do that. We're an Amazon agency. Amazon is what we do. But now I'll talk brands out of certain things if I don't think it's a good investment for them. But if a brand is resolute and they want to try this platform, and I can see, some kind of use case for them, it doesn't look like an absolute failure. We'll just do it. We'll gut it out. We'll put skin in the games. More often than not, we will do it for free for an initial period, like 30 days, because we're learning too. But we absolutely have a culture of innovation. That's our DNA.
And I love that that's the case because we know that founders and companies in retail that are kicking ass have innovation as a core part of their DNA, whether they're innovating flavors or innovating new products or just innovating the way they do things, from a small company like, Arshad Bal bringing all his manufacturing in-house, or, somebody else is, sort of like the Sarah from Cirilla is,
Mm.
sourcing her tea from Rwanda because, of all the reasons. It's innovation just seems to be a key part of survival, sort of like a little bit of chaos and innovation.
Yeah, yeah. 100%. I mean, you can look at if you look at this space, if you look at CPG over the last maybe 10 years, you can look at what innovation has done for brands. There was a time when it was Amazon, where, and I'll tell you, that's how I started out, flipping things on Amazon. I was active duty in the Marine Corps, and you could buy a pair of Vans for $50 off the store shelf and flip them for $200 back in 2010. And that proceeded from Amazon. Well, first it was eBay, and then it was Amazon, and then it was Instagram that blew up brands, and then it was TikTok that blew up brands. And most of those things are pretty saturated, and they're a tough game now. Now, for me, at least in the space that I service, it's retail media, it's shopper marketing. And I think that it is really important for young brands, for early stage brands to exploit those frontiers. If they don't exploit those frontiers, then they're competing with the Cheetos and the Oreos and the Coca-Cola. So frontiers is where we live as an agency. I learned to do that back around 2010 to 15. That's how you survived. That's how you took a small brand and made it a big brand, and now that's just what we do.
I love that, and I think that it helps keep you or any brand that takes this approach so relevant. You may not find clients that want to pay what you want to charge, but there's never a difficulty of attracting people and finding the right client, is my assumption.
Right. Yeah, 100%. You're always on the hot thing. Um, and you're always on the hot thing that most agencies won't touch. So there's tons of opportunity when you position that way.
I mean, it's funny that you say that because literally in our world, agencies typically, with social or digital in general, typically want to do paid programs, right? The organic programs, whether it's organic SEO, organic social, like organic, email. Well, there's no other email but organic, but they tend to be more difficult, and so a lot of agencies don't even want to do it. So I love that you've blazed your own path. Where does, in terms of testing, you know, um, what's the wildest thing you've ever tested?
Oh, that is an interesting question. Probably OpenAI. We have a team of developers, so we it would be boring if I told you what we're doing with it now. It's a good use case for us, but it's kind of boring. But in we have an integration with the OpenAI API, and GPT is far more powerful, I think, than what people realize using Chat GPT, especially when you have a developer that can prompt through the way that they think, and they're used to it's very similar to coding, really. I can barely read the prompts our developers use. But I think when we first started using OpenAI, it felt like I was looking into an abyss. When I started realizing what it can do, it's almost kind of scary, the things that a generative AI platform can do that we think only humans can do. I think really to kind of cap that off, I'd say I think we thought when we saw AI, it was going to get rid of a lot of the low skill jobs. And what I really think is at risk is the high skill jobs. I think automation has been around for forever, but thinking growing automation is incredible.
Yeah, that is super cool. So it's not going to replace I'm sorry, it's not going to replace low skill jobs because there's some things only a human can do, but it's going to replace kind of maybe the anomaly recognition or the deep insights or
Yeah.
prediction even.
Yeah, I think, I mean, certainly things like um, data entry, it can replace for sure. It's probably not going to replace plumbers for quite a while, but data analysis, and most of us at this point probably know people who've been displaced by AI, and I definitely do. My brother-in-law had a very senior position, and he had for an insurance company, end up having to re train the AI that replaced him. So I think it's capable of a lot more than we think. And will it replace low skill jobs? Yeah, I definitely think it will, but where's the value in it for a business? For a big company like Walmart, are they going to save more by replacing data entry, or are they going to save more by replacing a business development manager that's making $200,000 a year? So it's a little scarier to me than I expected. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
I wanted to just switch gears for a second. You've built when I was looking at your website, you've built a very diverse team, and what stood out to me is veterans, athletes, and entrepreneurs. How has that? What role has that played in your success?
Well, I will say that it's been hard to do, and I think uh, to me it was important that we had a certain culture, which is the why behind it, which is not really what you asked, but um, I think just in building our brand and the way that we interact with clients, one of the things that was really important to me was precision. You have people that have a penchant um, for detail and it's basically just high performers. And I think that um, that's just part of our, again, part of our DNA, part of our culture. So that's what we present. It's not for everybody. Not everybody wants that, but that's the way we present to our clientele.
That's fantastic. Now let's talk about Eric. You know, what do you do for fun?
I like this question. I everybody's a foodie now, so it's kind of boring to say that, but I am a foodie. Um, I spent way more than I want to tell anybody building a charcuterie board on Saturday. I love food. I was a pretty competitive adventure athlete at one time. I did a lot of adventure races, a lot of adventure racing. I'm less competitive now because I just don't have the time, but I still like doing that sort of thing. Um, I stopped doing. I did mixed martial arts up for a long time, since way before school, up until about 2 years ago. It's another thing I haven't had a lot of time for, but I'd like to get into that again.
I feel
As
like
a-
based on what I've seen you do, you're a uh, pragmatic foodie.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Probably, I love that. Yeah, that's probably quite
You
on point.
you are pragmatic about you have these things, you're going to make them work,
Yeah,
and you're not opposed to lowbrow food. It's like, what a lot of people would consider to be, not
yeah.
the haute couture. You're like, hey man, I'm making this burger, I'm cooking this steak. You're all over it. If it tastes good, you're into it. That's why I just threw that phrase out there. Now, what about, like I'm big on founder health, right? And
Mhm.
you're the founder of this company, and you're the leader, you're the visionary. How do you take care of yourself? Is sleep play into it? Hydration, food, like, what's the mix look like?
I'm pretty aggressive with working out um, and nutrition. I generally live like a monk in some ways. On the weekends, I don't take the weekends off, but you'll see, if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see that there are some I get sent a lot of things too. So I'm gonna make something cool out of everything somebody sends me. Somebody actually thinks it's important to send something to me for whatever reason. I'm gonna make use of it. But I would say Monday to Friday, I live like a monk. On the weekends, if I'm over at somebody's house, I'll scale back, or somebody sends me something, I'll scale back a little bit. But I put a lot of time and effort into that. Working out is the first thing I do every single day. I always have, I say I don't race the way I used to, but I always have a race on the calendar for the most part, which I think gives you focus. But I do put a lot of time and effort into it.
I'm trying to read between the lines there. So to make sure I get the answer I'm looking for, you prioritize sleep.
Oh, well, I didn't answer that part of the question because I haven't done it. Yeah. Duncan, I'm going to ask you, do you prioritize sleep?
I do prioritize sleep. I think I only succeed with that prioritization like maybe 75% of the time.
That's pretty good though. That's pretty good for somebody running their own company. That's pretty good. I will tell you that I was extreme in the opposite direction, and I started that very young. So I had my first full-time job at I think was either the end of my 13th year or 14. I had to get an exemption from the state. We were poor. And I worked full time all the way through high school, and I learned that if I sleep less, I can do more. And then I joined the Marine Corps, where you do things like you train through the night. There are training events you'll go through, or on deployment where you don't sleep for 3 days. And I carried that with me for a long time, carried it into business. And probably about 2 years ago, I started realizing that was not sustainable and not the best way. Youth will cover a lot of sins, as I'm in my 40s, mid 40s now. So I started realizing I didn't recover the same way, and it was not smart. So that was 2 years ago. I started realizing and admitting to myself, but more like this past year, I've been trying harder to really make sure I prioritize sleep. I'm not at 75% yet, but I'll get there.
Well, that's room for improvement, then that's good.
Yeah.
What about I was trying to think of my other pieces. So you work out, you're trying your best to sleep better. What about hydration and food?
I am usually very disciplined about the way I eat during the week. Again, I'll deviate a little bit on the weekends, but not because I feel like it. Usually it's because I'm with somebody and I don't want to ruin. I used to be I'd go to somebody's house and say, I'm not going to eat that. I don't eat that. I don't eat that. And I've stopped doing that. That's kind of rude. So and then it's, again, if somebody sends me something, I'm going to at least try it. But I take pretty close care to what I eat. And what was the other part of that question? It was nutrition
Hydration.
and
Hydration.
um I need to do a better job at that. I've just started adding. Have you ever added salt to your water before you go to sleep, which is a part of hydration?
I have not. I have not, and I know that we lose a lot of moisture from our bodies during the night.
Yeah, I've just started doing that. I've always started my morning for a very long time with about 18 ounces of water, and I end my day like that. I think I need to do a better job during the day, to be honest with you.
My wife has gotten me into. I don't do it often enough, but element, and so
Oh,
you got
really?
you got to be careful with element though because you put too much in, and man, it's so salty it covers up any flavor. So but
Interesting.
it's got a really great. I think she got it from the Huberman
Okay.
but I should just do more things that she does and that she tells me to do. So
You listen to the Huberman
I
podcast?
no, she does. My wife
She
does.
does.
So I get
So
the
she keeps you.
I
She
get
keeps it on track.
yes, I get the updates. It's the executive briefing, I call it. So
That's great.
she
That's
said to me,
great.
well, where the hell's my executive briefing? So I always try to keep her up with social and what we're doing in our world. But I
That's
wanted to
great.
ask you, now look, you touched on this, and I wasn't quick enough to follow up when you touched on it, but there are a lot of founders, and they're early. Some of them are early. A lot of them are early in their journey, and I feel like if you're in the right crew, right, you know what to do. You know whether you're going to, pursue funding or not, and obviously the reasons for doing both. But also, especially after I've met you, I'll start asking people. I've DM'd a bunch of people, hey, what are you doing with, retail media? They don't know what it means sometimes. So I'll say, hey, what's your approach with Walmart, or with, any of the others that you mentioned, right? And most of them don't have a plan. They are thinking, which I'm not knocking the value of the farmers market. It's a critical piece, right? But once you're to a certain point, you're manufacturing, or you're using a co-manufacturer, whatever it is, you should be thinking about retail media.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, let's say you have another way, that's fine, but a brand needs to have they need to put probably more time in figuring out how they're going to get off the shelf than they are about how they're going to get on the shelf. And I think I can think of a number of brands who've come in and said, I need help. Usually somebody will introduce them, and this brand I can think of off the top of my head was in numerous retailers. They had considerable D2C traction. And I believe they used that to get these national rollouts. And they had numerous retail accounts, national retail accounts, and their shelf turn was terrible. So in one particular example, they were expected to get 4 turns per SKU, per door, per shelf. So if you don't have a lot of experience with retail, that retail shelf is real estate that needs to make a certain amount of money per square inch. So the buyer knows that I need this many turns per SKU, per door that you're in per week. And this brand needed 4, and they weren't even at point 0.4 and national rollout. So that we can't expect that the retail buyer is always going to get that right. They don't. Sometimes I think they confuse, there's a lot of turnover there, and sometimes I think they confuse, oh, you did this well in this one regional retailer. And you have all this, awareness through your D2C platforms. Great, we're going to give you a national rollout, and then the brand has no idea what to do with that. Brilliant people, they've done brilliant things, they've mastered D2C and all kinds of other things, and they found their way into the door, but they have no plan for how to get back off the shelf. So whether that's retail media, which I think is a great way to do it. I mean, we're doing this for a reason. We've leaned hard into this. But if you have a way to do it through demos or whatever, coupons, digital coupons or whatever, that's fine. But brands need to have a strong plan, because one of the worst things I've ever seen happen to brands is when they get a massive rollout and they can't keep it. They scale to meet the needs of this rollout, and then in a few months it's gone. It's disastrous.
Eric, thank you so much for your generous time today. But we have to do this again. I'm so excited about these, invaluable insights. Just real quick, if people want to find you, Eric Martindale on LinkedIn.
That's right. Yep. Or Eric at elitecommercegroup.com. That works too. It's my personal email.
elitecommercegroup.com. Thank you so much, Eric, about sharing your insights and telling us a little bit about what we can expect from the future of retail. And thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been another amazing episode of the Firebelly Social Show. I'm your host, Duncan. Thank you once more to Eric, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, Duncan.
Thanks for listening to the Firebelly Social Show. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.